Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Jeff Mendelson, and this is the One Big Tip podcast. And today I am really pleased to have with me on the line Brian Lovegrove. Brian is a leadership developer and results coach. Messed that up. Let me do that again. Brian Lovegrove is a leadership developer and results coach. He is an Amazon best-selling author and has partnered with several of the biggest names in the personal growth and leadership training industry. And also, Brian has created the 5 keys to success to guide people to develop skills and strategies to truly become successful in every aspect of life. So, Brian, you have a tall order today to inspire a lot of people. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
So I was hoping that you can break down for us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today as a personal development coach.
Well, I actually got started in personal development at a very young age. I grew up in Montana, and anytime we would go out of town, which would be a long drive, my dad would plug in these tape series from work. He was a commercial real estate broker. Now, of course, this was before the iPad, the wonderful iPod that so many of us grew up with, the noise canceling headphones, and that great, wonderful device that I loved and grew up with, the Sony Walkman. So I got stuck listening to whatever he put into the tape deck. And so I got introduced to guys like Jim Rohn, Earl Nightingale, and Zig Ziglar at a very young age. And as I continued to grow and my dad would plug in these tape series, I would groan when he put them in, but I actually loved to listen to them. When I turned 17, I bought my first tape series myself from my own money, and that was Tony Robbins' Unlimited Power. And to make the long story short, I ended up working for one of Tony's franchises for a period of time after college. And then I ended up going to work from corporate America for over 15 years. And about 2013, 2014, I started trying to figure out, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? My kids were getting ready to graduate. And I wanted to say, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And I came back to that thing that I love to do, which was the coaching and training piece. I didn't realize it at the time. But along that journey, that 15-year journey, I was continually consuming personal development across the board, multiple industries, you name it. I love to learn. But my problem is I wasn't implementing what I knew. I wasn't reaching the level of success that I was expecting. And I went, why? What was the problem there? And so, again, I kind of took another journey in there. Along the way, I partnered with John Maxwell. For those people who are not familiar with him, world-renowned leadership expert, written over 80 books, 7 New York Times bestsellers, including the best-selling book on leadership ever, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Great book if you haven't had it. It's still the best-selling book, even though that is the 10-year anniversary edition. But I'm also a certified coach with Tony Robbins' group, the Robbins-Madonnas Training Group. And so I bring a wealth of information, and how I got here was I realized that there was 2 major problems that people had. They weren't following through with what they already knew to do. And that's why I call myself a results coach, is because at the end of the day, yes, going to the seminars gets you excited, makes you feel good, but you can't feel good. You can't pay your rent with it. It's only when you get the results and are able to produce what you want to produce that it gets there. The other gap I saw was we don't have quality leadership. And reason I call myself a leadership developer is there's a difference between leadership training and leadership development.
That is all so true. I mean, I come across so many people that are course junkies, that have solid libraries of all these motivational books. How many of them have you actually read? Oh, I'm only through 3 of them, but I have these other 12 to go on. Right? There's so much there, and actually, if you think about it, there's also so much information to consume. It's almost like,
yes,
who should you follow? right?
Absolutely.
Who should you say, like, okay, I'm going to focus on one guy? Could be Russell Brunson, could be Tony Robbins, could be Dane Graziosi. It could be whoever these people
Right.
are. All of these people put out an open fire hose of content, every month. So it's like, oh my God, like, what do you focus in on? How do you help people figure that out? Like, obviously you want them to buy your stuff and to use your books and your processes and all that, right? But how do you get them to, like, sort of disengage from the shiny object syndrome and actually, put their nose down and actually get the work done?
Well, we start by first off identifying what the goal that they want to accomplish is. Too many times, you're right, there is way too much information. There's, oh, I need to go learn this, and I need to go learn this, and I need to go learn this. Well, one of the things that I learned is there's just in time learning. Go learn it when you need it, not when, because you don't have to know everything in order to get started. That's what another myth that some people have is, I feel like I got to know everything before I leave the garage. You got to start down the road. You don't know what you're going to encounter. One of the strategies that I promote is ready, fire, aim. Get started, get moving, do something, and start to get some results. And then based upon those results, you can then make those adjustments. And one of the ways that I do that through my big one tip, which is using my journal.
Before we get into the one big tip part, I think what you said there is really interesting. The ready, fire, aim, because the action part is where most people take notice of, right? If you're still just sitting in the woods aiming, but never pulling that trigger, it's like nobody really knows what you're doing. Like, nobody knows that you're actually going out there. They don't know what you stand for. Now,
Mhm.
if you got ready and then you fired, and then it's like, oh shoot, now where do I go? Right? At least now people have an inkling of what it is that you're doing, right? It's like,
Right,
where are
right.
you going with that? And that is so true, because what happens is, like, even just creating that momentum is sometimes enough to get people to actually get off their butts and actually do it, right?
Right. And you mentioned the key word there, momentum. And the second half of that strategy is ready, fire, aim, fire, aim, fire, aim, fire, aim, fire, aim. And then once you've got it dialed in, fire, 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 fire. Taking action is actually the third key in the 5 keys of success. The first one is to get clarity. Get clear on where you are and where you want to go. Number 2, get committed. This is where most people miss the boat because they haven't burned their boats. I'm sure you've heard that analogy numerous times.
Burn your boats,
Then
kill
get
the
cranky.
babies, all that stuff.
Yes, yes. Focus in on one thing. Get really good and excel at one thing. Then go on and move on to something else. The fourth key is accountability. This is where a lot of people struggle because, especially as entrepreneurs and business owners, we're at the top of the food chain. We don't have anybody else that we're really accountable for in getting the stuff done. And because of that, the stuff that's important but not urgent doesn't get done. And then the fifth key is get correct or self mastery, that continual growth process that we need to go through. Because if you were to ask yourself, could you have been able to reach the level you are at today a year ago? The answer is probably no, because you had to grow into the person who could produce the results you're producing today. There was distinctions you had to
Exactly.
make. Now, did you learn a lot? Did you learn a no, it was little things. It was the little shifts. And that's the thing that is another myth. Oh, we have to go learn all this stuff. It's the little distinctions. It's that little twist, that little shimmy that makes you be able to separate it yourself from everybody else. If you start to think about it, in the Olympics, what's the difference between the first place and the fourth place? Is it twice as much? No, it's a fraction of a second usually.
That's very true. That's very true. All right, cool. So let's circle back to this whole journaling thing. And I'm going to be honest with you. When I first read it, it's like, oh my God, another journal. right? Because I've tried all the apps. I've tried Day One. I've tried, using all these different diary things on it. I couldn't get into any one thing.
Hmm.
And even up until about 2 weeks ago, some friends, I was talking to some friends about, this overwhelm that I've been feeling, right? Because
Right.
I have a lot on my plate right now, between the podcast, my existing clients, new clients that I want to get, and these other endeavors that I want to push out. And of course, there's family time and, all that other stuff that,
Oh,
you
absolutely.
need to sit and watch Lifetime with the wife, right? So,
Yes.
you need to do that kind of stuff too. So, journaling, right? I finally broke down and got my journal. So I got the High Performance Planner journal, right?
Hmm.
You also have one that you put out, but I want to talk a little bit about why journaling is so important. As opposed to just sticking something on your Outlook calendar or typing something into your to-do list. Why does having a physical book in front of you help you as opposed to other means that, other digital means that may or may not get into your
Right.
head and make you do things?
Right. Well, first off, there's a lot of science behind the actual act of writing something down. They say that if you can, you retain so much more just by actually taking notes in a class or in a webinar. Your level of retention goes up dramatically if you, as opposed to just sitting there and listening to it. But I use journaling. I actually started journaling a long time ago because one of the things that Tony promotes is that a life worth living is a life worth recording. And in fact, that is the quote that is in the beginning of my journal right there. And so Tony was the one who inspired me to start journaling. And I have used just regular journals for a long time. And when I created my Incredible Results 91 Day Challenge, which is designed to do one thing, it's designed to help you develop the habit of consistently taking action on your top priorities. I was doing a form of journaling that I had learned, and I had taken the piecemeal. Oh, well, journal about this and journal about that, and this, that, and the other thing. And there were so many different things that they was talked about, but there were some key things that I took away. And so when I created the program initially, I put together a framework for my clients to use. But what I realized was by creating an actual journal that walked them through step by step, that gave them specific blanks to fill out about what their top priorities. One of the things we added on the second version was the appointment calendar. But really, where I find journaling helps me the most and most of my clients is what I refer to as the right side of the page. The left side is you planning out your day. The right side of the page is you doing what I refer to as evaluated experience. This is the ultimate teacher because when you stop and you evaluate your performance, what did I get done today? First off, that acknowledges, hey, I made forward progress today. Whether that's inches or that's feet or that's miles, you feel like you made forward progress actually means you feel a level of success. There's a level of happiness with that. But you're also stopping and saying, okay, what did I learn? That's the second block in here is what did I learn from my experience? What benefits did I gain? Because when we stop and evaluate it and say, okay, what's the essence? What was the lessons that I take away from today? That's where growth happens. And I mentioned before, you have to grow into the person who can produce their level of results that will produce the goal you want. And then the third block in it is what adjustments do I need to make? Ready, fire, aim, right? Aim is that adjustment. What do I need to do differently? What worked? What didn't? And what little adjustment can I make? I like to think of the journal as kind of a GPS system. It keeps me pointed in the right direction. But at the end of the day, I find out, okay, how far did I go? And what I'm doing moving me closer or farther away from my goal? And I went and I think I counted it up. There's over 20 different strategies that I put into the journal, and as well as because again, there's daily sections as well as weekly sections because that evaluated experience makes a difference when you're looking at it from a daily perspective, a weekly perspective, and a monthly perspective. And so this is I created it as a 91-day journey simply because you got to grow. It takes time, it takes effort to develop this into a habit. If you remember when you were learning to drive, when you first got behind the wheel, you were freaked out trying to keep to do everything. But now you do it without even thinking about it. You have mastered that basic skill of driving. Now, you're not ready to go drive NASCAR or Formula One, but you are very capable in getting yourself to and from wherever you need to go.
That's so true. And I think one of the things that I was missing when I was, when I was just trying to visualize how a journal would help me, was that I was always thinking about it as a one directional type of experience where I am just putting in information into this journal and then something magical is supposed to happen. Right. And that's
Right.
actually the wrong way to do it. And like nobody really talks about that part. Right. And
Right.
that's and it wasn't until, like this friend of mine that, that recommended my journal. She's like, no, wait a second. Not only do you do it in the morning, you do it in the evening. Right. And you just and you use the evening part. I mean, yeah, you may be frazzled from the end of the day, but you use the evening part, first of all, to sum up what you did during the day, sort of evaluate
Right.
what it is that you've done, but also to give yourself a head start on tomorrow, right? Because,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
probably already have a pretty good idea of what's coming down the pike tomorrow. You've looked at your emails, you have a deadline or two coming up, you have,
Right.
a podcast recording or something, right? That you
Absolutely.
need to get done. So you already know a lot of these things. Like a lot of this stuff is already in your calendar, so you can account for it. But then also taking the time to judge, wow, was I really effective today? Did I really hit that nail on the head? Why do you think that evaluation system actually works? Like, what actually happens when you go in and evaluate the work, your own work that you did throughout the day, even if this is all in your head?
Because the act of writing it down makes it real. It makes it clear. If you're sitting there and you've got this idea that's floating around in your head and you sit down and then you try to explain it to somebody and they start asking you questions about it, you realize that your idea may only be half baked because you can't see the whole thing until you start sharing it with somebody else. And when you're writing that down, you're also basically saying, okay, because that last thing is, what am I going to do differently tomorrow? It's making a commitment to yourself. Now, I recommend people do the journaling and plan tomorrow the night before. It's actually one of the things that from sleep studies they have shown if they actually write down the important things they need to do tomorrow, it allows their mind to relax because they know that it's written down and they won't forget it. And if it's just stuck in the head, again, we're running around. There's so much information flying at us that it's real easy to miss out on those things. And so,
That's
how do
actually
you?
really poignant. It's like if
Yes,
you can get it out of your head, you can rest better. I mean, that
yes,
should be like the whole like the whole quote for the day, right? Just get
yeah,
it out of your head, get it down on paper. So,
absolutely. Yeah, there's like I said, there's a lot of stuff that's packed into this journal, and there's a whole program behind it as well that's specifically designed to help you because the journal is really just a tool. Because at the end of the day, journaling to write in a book isn't necessarily all that beneficial. But if it helps you get more done, my system is specifically designed to help you stay focused on those top priorities, those things that are urgent but not important. Yes, you may have a very busy schedule, but how do you make sure you're doing the right things? How do you make sure the things you're actually doing are moving you in the direction you want to go? All of these things are taken into consideration in the setup that I use. Now, unfortunately, the only way to buy my journal is to actually buy the program because again, it's the end result. What's the end result you want? It's not necessarily to write in a journal and have a record of okay, here's what I did today, or here's my feelings of the day. That's good, but there's so much more. There's so much. Let's take
what are
it
you
deeper. Let's
doing
take it
with that
farther.
feedback? I think is the key,
Exactly.
right? So even
Yeah,
if you're giving your own self feedback on how productive you were, whether you were a complete and utter failure or you got those 10 things that you wanted to get done,
right.
that feedback is what's important. And what you do with that feedback then afterwards and how you channel that into the next day is even more important,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes. So many times I can't tell you how many clients I have that beat themselves up because they didn't get enough stuff done or they did the wrong things. They went off in left field and Facebook scrolling or Netflix binging, and they went to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning and they got to get up at 7 o'clock. These are all the different things that cause us. But it's stopping and saying, instead of just stop beating yourself up, you quit doing it, quit doing that, quit doing that. Just okay, make a plan. Here's what I'm going to do tomorrow, and here's when I'm allowed to watch TV. Here's when I'm allowed to do the Facebook scrolling. And again, it's not necessarily about time management because we can't manage time. That is actually the one place everyone is equal. We all get the same 24 hours in a day. We don't know how many days we're going to get, but we all have the same 24 hours in a day. The real question that separates you and I from the average person is we are actively choosing how to use that time to the best of our ability.
Amazing. Amazing stuff. Thank you so much for that. Can you please let everyone know how they can learn more about you and how they can reach out to you directly if they'd like to learn more?
Well, if you're interested in the 5 keys, I have the 5 keys of success podcast. You can go to 5keysofsuccess.com. But where I want to send most people, because I've touched on a few different things here, there's so much more that I can't cover in this time frame. I've put together a 90 plus minute masterclass called Become Unstoppable. And you can go watch this and register to watch it. I'm actually doing it live. If you're watching this live now, or you're going to see this in the next day or so, I'm actually doing it live this coming Thursday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. You can go to becomeunstoppable.info to watch that live, or you will be able to watch the recording of it there after that. So you won't miss out on that. And so it's about, like I said, it's 90 minutes. It's pure education. There is no sales pitch in it whatsoever. I'm not going to ask you for your credit card at the end of it, no matter what. But I do offer an invitation because so many times people are looking for help and I don't know where you are and what you need. So let's sit down and have a conversation.
Amazing. Amazing stuff. Brian, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time to break this down. I love talking about these topics, right? Because it really gives you just that little bit different way of looking at things, and hopefully someone is going to listen to it as like, that is the missing piece. That is the one thing that I was missing, in order to make this work for me. So like what I found with this with this journal, and also like the one that you put out. There are so many apps out there. There's so much noise out there, right? So thank you for for putting that together and really breaking down those concepts.
Well, it's my pleasure. I put together the system that works for me and what I wish I had when I was getting started. And the course there is because, like I said, in the beginning, I struggled. I knew what to do. I wasn't doing it. So I put together a program that would teach the one skill that I think everybody needs to master: how to take action on your top priorities consistently. And that consistency piece develops the momentum that causes you to reach the stars.
Amazing, amazing stuff. Thank you so much for that. Brian, thank you for joining me today. This has been really educational. I love talking about this stuff. I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
It's been my pleasure.